Our protagonist, Kazami Yuuji, gets captured by the police as he arrives in town to enroll in Mihama Academy. Yuuji almost gets the situation even worse by answering questions in an uncertain way and making the police mistake him for a spy, but is later saved and escorted to Mihama Academy by the principal named Chizuru Tachibana. Yuuji's initial plan was to enroll in the academy to live life as a normal student, but Mihama Academy is supposedly the opposite of a normal academy. Chizuru takes Yuuji to the dormitory and is showing him his room when he comes across a student of the academy named Sachi Komine, who is dressed up as a maid for some reason. Sachi looks at Yuuji and calls him as if she knew him before. Yuuji meets with other students named Suou Amane and Irisu Makina in the dormitory and later proceeds to attend his first class at school. The classroom introduces another girl named Makina to Yuuji, and the two have a hilarious interaction after Yuuji makes fun of Makina and her hair in quite an alpha male way. Yuuji comes to know that the academy only consists of 5 students who are all girls, and Sachi remarks that one of the students named Sakaki Yumiko is absent from class today. The class concludes and Yuuji later tries to approach Yumiko to introduce himself to her, but Yumiko responds in a rather aggressive way and tries to cut him with a box cutter. Yuuji blocks her cutter but gets surprised by Yumiko's behavior as he just wanted to be nice to her. Yuuji, who's confused by Yumiko's reaction, returns to his room to find Amane after she sneaks in. The two get into a little chat where Yuuji explains about his sister Kazami Kazuki. Kazuki's name changes Amane's expression as it seems that she heard of that name before. The show hints us about the past of all the girls and how they ended up at Mihama Academy except Yumiko. After Yuuji receives a call from his boss JB, we get hints towards Yuuji's past too. Sakaki Yumiko continues with her attempts to injure Yuuji at the academy, but Yuuji keeps dodging her attacks that leads to Yumiko getting frustrated from all the effort. Yuuji comes across the girl named Makina in the garden of the academy and tries to get close to her, but Makina seems rather uncomfortable in opening up to him. Makina's opinion changes after Yuuji helps her in her crabfish hunting, and she gets closer to him, telling him more about herself and calling him Oni-chan at the end. Yuuji, still being concerned about Yumiko's behavior, meets Chizuru at the principal's office to discuss the matter. Chizuru remarks that the students of the academy are not normal kids, and all of them ended up here due to their own certain circumstances. Yuuji catches on to the situation and clearly understands that the normal life he was hoping for after joining this academy might just not be possible here. JB, who is Yuuji's guardian and his work boss, comes to meet him at the academy, and their interaction makes the girls curious about whether Yuuji has a girlfriend. Amane calms down after Yuuji reassures her that JB is only his boss and nothing more. After failing in many attempts to attack Yuuji, Yumiko tries to give it a shot one more time and sneaks up to Yuuji while he is trying to get in his room. Yuuji senses danger and ends up knocking out the box cutter from Yumiko's hand harshly this time without even knowing. Yuuji's instinctive reaction terrifies Yumiko and she gets intimidated. Yuuji calms her down and explains his intention of not hurting her in any way. He reveals that he just wanted to be friends with her, and this changes Yumiko's behavior towards Yuuji. She put her box cutter back in her drawer and never tried to attack Yuuji again from that day onwards. The show hints us yet again about how all the girls had traumatizing pasts that were the main reason for their enrollment in Mihama Academy. Yuuji's life continues with many things being a mystery, and he leaves for a morning jog the next day. While coming back from his run, he suspects something is wrong after he notices Amane breaking into his room. He worries about Amane being a murderer, but later is dumbfounded after Amane reveals that she only wanted to wake him up with a good morning kiss after he confronts her. Yuuji rushes to the class with Makina and Amane, and he makes Makina insult Amane's earlier action by singing a song with her. They succeed in annoying Amane, and she later realizes that Makina has been recently acting a lot like Yuuji when they're eating lunch. We are introduced to Michiru's cat later when she is seen by Yuuji after she makes weird noises playing with her. Back at school, Yuuji comes across Sachi, who made the shark pouch Michiru always wears, and manages to accidentally request Sachi to make him a similar one as well. Sachi makes the pouch, but Yuuji successfully makes Makina take it after Michiru shows some quick thinking. Quite an unexpected thing coming from Michiru. Yuuji experiences things that he had never experienced before enrolling into Mihama Academy and realizes that he is avoiding any sort of normal interaction with people after his master's death when Makina and Amane share their lunch with him the next day. The hints continue and Yuuji's past and enrollment seems to be linked with his master. Yuuji continues his morning jogs the next day and comes across Michiru, who is playing with the same black cat we were introduced to earlier. Yuuji indulges in a little conversation with her and picks up some abnormalities in the way Michiru was reacting. Yuuji's suspicions turn out to be closer to reality after the rest of the girls have a conversation about the recent switch-up in Michiru's behavior as well, making them concerned about Michiru. The same night, some weird noises come from upstairs and all the girls get scared and gather downstairs outside Yuuji's room. The group suspects something wrong going on and Yuuji decides to check up on the situation. Yumiko joins Yuuji, clearly showing her softened behavior towards him. The two hide away in the stairway after noticing something strange coming towards them that turns out to be Michiru, who had just dyed her hair and ended up getting some of the bleach in her eyes as well. Typical Michiru behavior right there. The next day, Amane asks Yuuji and Yumiko if men and women can be friends back at the dormitory. She receives an unclear answer and asks the same question to Michiru. Surprisingly, Michiru answers in an unusual way and runs away after that, making Yuuji even more suspicious of her recent behavior. Yuuji goes upstairs to confront Michiru in her room and tell her that there is something wrong with Michiru that he had met after enrolling in this academy. Michiru seems disturbed from this question, and we get to observe a visual change in her eye color. Yuuji's suspicions turn out to be true after he meets Michiru outside after her other personality had taken over. Yuuji asks her about what happened to the actual personality of Michiru and notices the different eye color of Michiru's split personality. Michiru attends the next day at school with her original personality with no memory of what happened between herself and Yuuji yesterday. She continuously asks Yuuji about their interaction from the other day and runs away panicking after Yuuji tries to explain yesterday by getting rather close to her. Michiru runs away in the corridor to regain her breath and goes to look for her cat, who she had named Meow Mel, since Meow Mel had gone missing for some reason. Yuuji catches up to Michiru outside the academy and goes to help her in her quest to find the cat. Yuuji suddenly suspects something is wrong and tells Michiru to head back without him. Michiru becomes persistent and follows Yuuji regardless of his warnings, just to find out that Meow Mel was bleeding out on the road after a vehicle had run over her. Yuuji stops a cab immediately and takes the cat and Michiru along to the hospital, but it turned out it was too late since Meow Mel had already died in Michiru's hands due to excessive blood loss. The two head back to the academy after they bury Meow Mel on the cliff Michiru usually sits at. Yuuji visits her room out of worry with Chizuru and finds out about the immense amount of drugs Michiru took to cope with the pain of losing Meow Mel. Yuuji takes Michiru to the infirmary so she can recover from all the medicine abuse. While Michiru is still in the infirmary, Sachi provides a locked box to Yuuji. It turns out that the box had a diary that Michiru used to keep in contact with her other personality, since both of her personalities couldn't retain memories of one another. Yuuji confronts Michiru about the diary after she recovers, and comes to know that the reason for her split personality was a heart transplant that Michiru had when she was younger. Michiru's original personality had hid itself away and had no urge to reveal itself again. Michiru requests Yuuji to help her get out of her misery and assist her in taking her own life. Yuuji tries to force her original personality out, but later agrees to help Michiru kill herself after the original personality didn't want to come out. Yuuji takes Michiru to the same hill she used to play with Meow Mel and helped in burying her underground inside a coffin. Michiru remembered about a flashback inside the coffin. She remembered how she wanted to die in middle school because she felt miserable and like a failure all the time. She decided to kill herself by jumping off the school roof, but ended up meeting another suicidal girl who became a close friend of hers. Michiru's life was about to return to normal, but her friend committed suicide that made her weak heart give up. Michiru received a heart transplant surgery with her friend being the donor, and somehow the heart retained the original personality who was able to communicate with Michiru. After all these flashbacks, Michiru came to realize that she never really wanted to die, and pushed herself out of the coffin after regaining her original personality. Yuuji, who was waiting outside for 3 days, helped her get out and later took her back to the dorm. Yuuji also took Michiru's other personality to her parents, and the show hints at how her other personality is still alive despite showing herself only a few times. Yumiko's reasoning for coming to the academy gets revealed as a flashback showing how she slashed the hand of a girl in middle school after she made fun of her for being the daughter of a mistress. Yumiko's father wanted to make Yumiko the heir of his railway company, but Yumiko kept denying and ended up fleeing to Mihama Academy. Yuuji gets assigned to a mission by JB, as Yumiko's father wanted him to act as his fake bodyguard and let her get abducted so her father can threaten her into coming back to him. Yuuji leaves on a walk outside the academy with Yumiko as planned, and a few men approach the two. Yuuji suddenly decides to disobey orders and defends Yumiko, helping her to get away from the guards. The two took shelter under a bridge, and Yumiko explained her past and her father's terrible behavior. Yuuji decides to fully help her in the case, causing more problems for the poor JB. Yumiko returns to the academy and her father releases a notice to shut down the academy in anger. Yumiko confronts her father head-on after he charges the dorm with his guards and pulls a gun in front of her. Yumiko runs away from the guards, and later the room where Yumiko ran into explodes, making her father believe that she had died. The school's closure was dropped, and when Yumiko's father was supposedly burying her, it is revealed that Yuuji had helped her in faking her own death. Yumiko receives a new identity to continue her life at school by JB, and she enrolls in the academy back again, just as another student. The unusual life at Mihama Academy continues when Michiru makes a joke about making the test disappear with Sachi, since it was too boring to study for Michiru the next day. Sachi takes the joke too seriously and decides the best way to avoid the test is to blow the whole building up. She starts preparing explosive in her room the whole night, and the next day before class decides to plant in the classroom. To Sachi's surprise, things go wrong when all the other girls arrive at the classroom saying that they were called here as well. Sachi tried to make the other girls leave, but they just ended up staying there, surprised by Sachi's change in behavior. The bomb was on a timer, and the time was running out fast. Just when time was about to run out, Sachi jumped on the bomb herself in the wish to save the rest of the girls. The girls were still surprised, but Yuuji pulls up in the class and tells everyone else to leave the class except Sachi. The timer ran out, and Sachi was almost terrified, but Yuuji tells her that he was already aware of the bomb and had replaced it with a fake one. Yuuji also calls Sachi as Sachan, telling her that he still remembers her. A flashback shows Sachi's past about how she used to play with Yuuji as a kid before he moved away. Sachi's parents got into a truck accident after she made selfish demands on her birthday. Her father died on the spot, and her mother has been in a coma ever since. Yuuji takes Sachi back to her own home, showing her that her parents loved her and the accident wasn't her fault. Yuuji also explained that playing with Sachi helped him forget a lot of his own problems, and took Sachi to visit her mother to end the day, helping her lighten her heart. Sometime later, Yuuji receives an email from Makina stating that he is now her papa. Out of confusion, Yuuji confronts Makina and she offers her whole inheritance of 70 million yen to him as the payment of acting like her father. Yuuji reluctantly agrees to look after her, and this build-up surprises the other girls as well. Amane declares herself as Makina's mother from now on out of jealousy. Yuuji takes Makina out to his home in the mountains, where he used to live with his master. On the way back in town, Makina comes across her little sister, Sarina, who is now the heir of the Irisu group. Makina happily passes by Sarina, but is later terrified after Sarina's car blows up right in front of her. Makina is back at the academy recovering when Yuuji reveals that her sister is expected to survive. Yuuji's problems increase even more after JB invites him for a new mission, and the target this time being Makina herself. Yuuji accepts the job JB assigned him to, so he can keep Makina safe. The two flee from the academy for safety purposes while promising to return safely. Makina receives an apple sapling from Sachi, and the pair head out to find safety. Makina is attacked by various agents, but Yuuji manages to keep her safe and take every one of them out. They find shelter at an old hideout, and Makina reveals her past to Yuuji about how her father was murdered for fighting against corruption right in front of her eyes. She reveals that her mother was the one who got her father killed, and due to Makina's photogenic memory, she remembered some important corruption documents that she used to blackmail her mother into keeping her sister safe. Makina's mother sent more agents to dispose of her, and their latest hideout was also discovered. Yuuji somehow manages to get out this time too, but Makina separates from him to look for the apple sapling she left behind. Makina gets shot, and later her mother visits the hospital asking JB if her organs were fine since Sarina needed replacement. JB looked at Makina's mother with pure disgust as to how bad of a human being she was. The action of Makina's mother pissed Yuuji off, and he went to the root of all the problems. Yuuji disguised himself as a technician and sneaked into the Irisu Group's headquarters, where he shot Makina's mother dead. The papers against Irisu Group's corruption were also leaked that completely destroyed the company and finally freed Makina from all the trouble. Makina regained consciousness, but her wounds were still healing. After such a long time of running away for her life, Makina finally returned back to Mihama Academy along with Yuuji, who had succeeded in his mission to protect Makina from the hitmen. Yuji's life at Mihama Academy continued as there were more mysteries left yet to be revealed before the students could finally get a normal life back.